No worries. Okay. So let's talk mariachi. Here in America, here in the United States, it's taken over in many cities now, and it's growing, especially in the younger generations. Can you tell us a little bit about Mariachi USA, the history and your involvement with mariachi?
Oh, let's see. Inception 1990. I had pretty much wrapped up my international work. I wanted to anchor myself here in LA so I could spend more time with my mother and my father, and I just looked for a niche in the entertainment industry here where I had been producing for such a long time, and decided that there was a need for great mariachi entertainment, and I wanted to present it in the best venue possible, and selected the Hollywood Bowl, and we sold out that first year and sold out every year thereafter except for the year of 9/11, and we've had a couple of recessions and depressions between then and now, and then of course this year total cancellation because of the pandemic. But I've loved mariachi for a very long time. I was booking American acts into Mexico and South America, and my entire travels throughout Mexico, it was just, I was so drawn to the sounds of mariachi. The acoustic instrument has always like pulled me in and drawn me in, and the magnificent voices of mariachis as well. So for me, it was, not rocket science to put two great elements together, which was mariachi and the Hollywood Bowl. And here we are, going on our 31st year. Is actually going to be virtual on YouTube.
Wow, that's amazing. No, and speaking that, you're not Mexican, are you? I mean, you're, from my understanding,
I'm Cuban.
You're Cuban, right? So it's that's amazing that you are pushing this, and you've been doing this for 31 years. I went to your show once at Hollywood Bowl. It was amazing. I'm a fond lover of mariachi music myself. I've gotten to work with Mariachi Vargas many times here in Chicago, so and many other groups that come here to the Symphony and Mexican Fiesta up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So can you tell us, in your 31 years, how the music has emerged into different markets, not just typical Mexican markets, but into other markets as well, especially some of these emerging markets?
Well, wherever you have had Mexicanos, go traveling into, and for many different reasons. There's been a lot of Mexican and Mexican Americans that have moved out of California because of tax purposes or in search of a better life, and so many of them have been musicians, and they start up mariachis wherever they go because there's a need for it. So while Mariachi USA is the largest mariachi festival in the world, it is based here, and the hometown is Los Angeles. We've taken the show on the road, but that doesn't stop other, there's nonprofits that have sprung up all over the country, and they have their own festivals as fundraisers. Ours is obviously a commercial endeavor, although we also have a separate foundation that is now 30 years old. We've been providing grants for after-school programs for kids. Some of our kids back then are now grown-up kids that have their own kids and have their own professional mariachis as well. But when you look at Texas, for example, that has just mushroomed with mariachis, so much so that it's educational program that was begun by actually a woman who started this whole thing, Belle Ortiz. She's never credited enough. I don't know why humanity has such a hard time passing on credit, but she really is the one that needs to be applauded for mariachi here in the United States. She launched Mariachi Campanas de America and also created the Mariachi Festival almost 45 years ago, roughly. And that was in San Antonio. She was an educator, and she also began mariachi in the curriculums to the point where it's now master programs in many universities throughout Texas, which leads me to applaud them because they have more youth mariachis than any other state in the United States. And there's a reason. If you have a reason to get a bachelor's or a master's to have a job at the end of that, then you're going to do it. Whereas here in California, there is no mariachi in the curriculum. Therefore, all of our kids here rely on mariachi musicians to teach, but a musician is not a teacher, and so it's not as easy. You know, they don't have the tools with which to teach music, so it makes it a little bit more challenging. And because it's not in the curriculum, kids don't have that daily, you know, we're going to band, we're going to practice, we're going to this, we're going to that. Here, kids are doing it against all on their own, you know, at a friend's backyard in somebody's garage. Some of the schools have allowed for them to have homerooms here. So, you know, it's changing. Little by little it's changing. But, yes, Texas continues to lead the pack.
Here in Chicago, I know I've been to several shows locally here from, you know, different, but there's more programs, as you said, are into these curriculums. Here in Chicago, the Chicago Public Schools now has a program for mariachis. I know that one of the groups, Mariachi Herencia de Mexico, is a big drive here in Chicago, and they have a lot of the younger kids who are now touring the U.S., so it's very interesting to see these younger kids carry on some of these huge traditions of Mexico. So that's amazing. I was in New York last year, and I got to see Aida Cuevas with another mariachi. Actually, it was Mariachi Vargas who was playing at a small little venue, and the line was wrapped around the block for people trying to get in. I was really shocked, but it was good to see that.
Yes. Yeah, the popularity in the United States has just grown immensely.
Talk to us a little bit about your upcoming YouTube performance or show. What can some of our viewers expect?
Well, if Brenda hasn't already told you, it's an action-packed 2 hours of mariachis, and we have approximately 16 groups and a couple of special artists. One of them, Pedro Infante's granddaughter, Lupita Infante, and then Mateo, a little guy from Texas who mariachi. A couple of all-stars from Mariachi USA that have played the Hollywood Bowl many times as part of mariachis, but also as soloists. And we have, this music genre has grown in the female gender to the point where now women are leading. Where it used to be male dominant, now it's becoming female dominant. So for me, being a Latina, I've supported that. As a matter of fact, we presented the first all-female mariachi at the Hollywood Bowl, and then after that they started mushrooming everywhere here in the States and also in Mexico because it was not the thing to do. So I'm happy that we had a hand in motivating that because, I mean, that's how we are. And I should say just me. I can't speak for everyone, but I very much am a guardian of legacy. People have asked me, well, what's your legacy? And I said, well, I'm a guardian of legacy, and the legacy is mariachi. You know, it's a music that's rooted in tradition, and for me, Mariachi USA is celebrating family pride and tradition. And to be a guardian of that is a privilege and an honor that I don't take lightly. And by being a guardian means that you have to, there has to be continuity so that the younger generations have access to it and can be involved in it. And then you have to let the creative process just take over. You cannot dictate for them. There's a lot of groups that say, no, you have to stay with the traditional. No, you have to do this. No, you have to do that. That's sort of like having told Picasso you can only paint with red, blue, and yellow, and that's it. You can't, and you can only paint on a canvas. Yeah. So the younger generations are finding that there's greater, free reign to their music, and that in and of itself takes them to the traditional aspect of mariachi, the instrumentation, the trajes. They take great pride, in wearing that traje. And we cover some of these things in our special by interviewing the all-stars, whom many are educators and have access to these kids on a daily basis, from grammar school, middle school, junior high school, all the way to high school and university. So you get to hear from those professionals and teachers what they're seeing in the school. One of our all-stars, Roland, out of San Antonio, him and his wife have a very successful real estate company, but he's also, mariachi. His mother, ironically enough, is the woman I'm talking about, Bella Ortiz. And and he
Oh, wow.
became mariachi. And both of his kids are involved in music. One of them is in a university right now, but they're in marching band and they play. They're like saxophone stars. And he made a comment. He says, there was a point when we, we and other kids, we were embarrassed. These kids were embarrassed to be in mariachi. They loved it, and their parents applauded them at home, but they were embarrassed. And they're the rock stars in the school. Everybody thinks, wow, mariachi, and you see the kids wearing the flowers. They are the coolest kids, and they are rock stars. They're as important at a football team at a football game as the football team. So it's times have changed, and for the better, I dare say. There's a lot of pride that's attached to being a mariachi, and there's pride in knowing that there's a mariachi in your school, in your neighborhood. I mean, Jose, the times have changed so much. I mean, even you yourself know. Not that we don't have a long ways to go, but to come up the ranks from where kids were embarrassed to speak Spanish. And
right.
A lot of these kids still don't speak Spanish, but they've learned it phonetically because they've learned the songs. And so in learning the songs, they're learning to speak. So
Yeah, and what I find very interesting with some of these smaller groups that for some of these folks here in Chicago, these small groups, that's their way of life. I mean, that's how they survive because that's what they do. The father, the uncles, whatever the case may be, and then the kids get into it, and they enjoy the music, they love the music, they enjoy the instruments. What they hate the most probably is giving up their Friday and Saturdays, where they're probably the busiest,
Yes.
But hey. But you're right. They become rock stars amongst themselves, their friends, their families members, and so on and so on. That's interesting. This year's going to be a little different for everyone, obviously. There's no outdoor concerts. Obviously, Hollywood Bowl won't be the same. How was production different this year, obviously, than last year? Was it more challenging?
Well, it's very different because the Hollywood Bowl is 5 hours, and we have spectacular fireworks. And our, people start getting there at 12 noon. Our foundation kids perform in the plaza. And what we're doing on YouTube was, in Guadalajara, for example, we had one of the groups was out in the horse ranch. And they recorded out there just, for safety reasons. And everyone in their respective states, like Mariachi Tapatio in New York, they went to a theater, and instead of being on stage, they were actually in the theater seats so that they had, greater separation. Everyone else did studio work. Mariachi Divas, Grammy Award winners. She owns her own studio, and so she booked the girls to come in, 2 at a time so that they all felt very safe. Mariachi Los Toros and Los Reyes. Well, Toros have their own studio as well, and they've basically been living in a bubble, and they don't play with anyone else. And they do very few gigs, so they felt very safe being in the studio and recording. So it just depends on it depended on the individual of how much they were willing to do, whether they were going to do it in their homes or in a studio or inside an empty theater on a stage. It was really dependent on their availability. A few of the groups had members that had COVID, so they had to pass on being available to do this. And we respect, what our number one situation is be safe and, be healthy. We don't want to push any of you to do anything that you don't feel safe doing. Even our dancers, we asked our dancers to do a couple of dance numbers, and the director is a good friend of mine, and I said, listen, if it's just you, just one couple, we're fine. All 14 of our dancers showed up to do this because they were so excited. They said, no way. They all wore masks. They blinged out their masks. And they did it in one of the compadres. It's sort of like a backyard that extends onto like an alley or something, so that they had room for all 14 dancers to do Guadalajara. So we had Nuevo Tecalitlan out of Jalisco performing Guadalajara, and the dancers here in I think they were in Hacienda Heights or in West Covina somewhere. And then my director and I were basically producing this, via Zoom. There's nothing else we could do. So everybody recorded their portions, and then my director mixed it, and, it was really In Spanish, I like to call it arroz con mango because that's what it was.
Arroz con mango. That's too funny. It's
but
good.
to produce 2
Wow.
hours, I have to tell you that it was, to not have the access that major production companies may have. I think that this has sort of neutralized everyone. We're all in the same field, so to speak. And the one thing that I already knew this, but it just, again, drove home what I've always said. You remove the bling, the spectacularness of what is the Hollywood Bowl, #1 venue in the United States, top 3 in the world. It's the glitz. It's the fantastic sound system and the amazing lighting and all that works. You remove all of that, and what you end up with is still that puro corazón, pura alegría del puro mariachi. And it still comes across, whether they're in their homes taping or in a studio or, in a horse ranch, wherever, you still get that magic that comes with listening to mariachi, and you don't miss anything else. So, think about it. Where do mariachis go, to perform? They're in your home. They're in your backyard.
Exactly.
They're there when you're born. They're there when you die, when you have your quinceañera or your bat mitzvah.
Mother's Day. Yes.
Yeah, Mother's Day. You get engaged. Father's Day. Serenatas, So they're in your face 24/7. So they have a relationship with their fans like no other musician does. Not jazz, not pop, not reggaeton. Not anyone, and that's why mariachis will always be a artist, until they retire, because they're always in demand. It might not be, this thing that I'm tired of hearing the phrase, mariachi doesn't sell. Well, mariachi doesn't need to sell in the eyes of the commercial market, of how they value what sells, because I have never had a talent at the Mariachi USA Festival because people don't want it. I have always placed the mariachis as the stars, and that's what sells, and that's what people want. They want puro mariachi. And all of those artists, all of those mariachis are still holding strong, whereas the A artists from 30 years ago are now playing like a house of blues. They might have brought in 10,000 or 20,000 at some arena, but now if they get, 200 at House of Blues, they're lucky. That doesn't happen with mariachi. They're always there. They're always in the staple, like our beans and rice.
You're right. I can agree with you on that. Here in Chicago, at the Pritzker Pavilion, when we go to the Mariachi Festival here, there's 25,000 people in that Pritzker Pavilion, and still people waiting trying to get in. But that's just the love of mariachi music here that we have in the Midwest, and I'm sure it's even bigger in LA and bigger in Texas, and obviously larger in Mexico. But that's amazing.
And so we're hoping that all of you and everyone that loves mariachi will tune in for this, because it's free thanks to Verizon. Verizon was our presenting sponsor this year at the Bowl. They were with us last year, and I had to go to them and say, hey, I can't do this by myself. Can you pitch in? Can you help me? Because I really want to do something nice. We did a 1 hour, Univision cleared an hour for us here. They jumped on the bandwagon, and they cleared an hour in LA. And we aired this, Brenda, 10 days ago, no? Más o menos. It was like 10 days ago. And Verizon sponsored that as well. And my thing was to be able to get, our 5 or 6 mariachis that we play at the Bowl, and Verizon basically said, well, what, just think big. What do you want to do? I said, well, it would be great if I could involve, 10, 15 mariachis. I want to be able to give them all a stipend and be able to pay the publishing, because, the composers for me are equally important. And to clear the music, it's expensive. And then I wanted to be able to, pay all of my production team as well, because they've all been out of work. So we were able to do it because of Verizon. And I don't mean it as a commercial, but I mean it as, corporate America who stands behind what they preach. And they very much support cultural arts in our community. So for me, it was, wow. It was a wow moment that we were able to do this and make it available. These 2 hours for this next month or so, it's free. You don't have to pay, whereas, normally you have to pay $4 or $5. How can you ask people that are already, challenged, financially challenged, especially at the root of our community, to go and pay I mean, I'm sure $5 for 2 hours of mariachi is nothing, but we really wanted to do this for free, and that's what we've come up with.
Well, thank you, Verizon, for keeping the mariachi music alive and going from 2020, because that's what we needed, We definitely need it nowadays. Yes. Well, to wrap things up, can you give us a little information on the YouTube event and when it's going to take place and the time for our LatinoScoop readers? And then we'll
absolutely.
let the readers know.
Yeah. And Brenda can send you the URL, but it's on YouTube, the Mariachi USA channel. It's this Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which I believe out there for you guys is 7 p.m. I don't think time has changed yet. No, we haven't. Did we fall back? No, we haven't. No, we haven't fallen back yet. Not yet. Are you 2 hours or 3 hours?
2 hours, yes, 2 hours.
Two, yeah. So for you it would be 7 p.m.
Okay. 7 p.m. in Chicago.
Yes.
And okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll let our readers and know about the special, the mariachi special coming up this Sunday, and we'll get the word out, and hopefully you have tons of viewers.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to it. I want to thank you for your time, Brenda. Thank you for your time as well. And
thank you, Jose.
Again,
I appreciate it.
Sorry for the
running around. Thank you, Jose.
On my end.
Stay safe out there.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.